In the bitter cold of 1942, two of the most powerful armies on Earth clashed in a shattered city on the banks of the Volga River. The city was Stalingrad, once a proud symbol of Soviet industry, now destined to become the deadliest, most brutal battlefield in human history. Here, in this frozen, ruined landscape, more than 2 million soldiers and civilians would fight, starve, freeze, and die. This is the story of the Battle of Stalingrad, the battle that became the ultimate turning point of the Second World War. It all began in the summer of 1942. After conquering most of Europe with his blitzkrieg tactics, Adolf Hitler turned his sights on the Soviet Union, launching the largest land invasion ever seen, Operation Barbarossa. By August, the German Sixth Army, an elite fighting force led by General Friedrich Paulus, had pushed deep into Soviet territory and arrived at the gates of Stalingrad. Hitler's orders were absolute and fueled by ideology. Take the city that bears the name of his nemesis Stalin at any cost. The assault began from the air. The German Luftwaffe unleashed a relentless bombing campaign, dropping thousands of tons of explosives and incendiary devices. The city, built mostly of wood and brick, was systematically obliterated. Entire neighborhoods were leveled in hours. Factories collapsed into infernos. The initial air raids killed tens of thousands of civilians, a horrifying prelude to the ground battle to come. But what the Germans didn't anticipate was that in destroying Stalingrad, they had created the perfect urban fortress. The mountains of rubble, twisted steel, and shattered concrete provided endless cover for the determined Soviet defenders. The city was a ruin, but it was not defeated. When the German infantry, confident after their string of victories across Europe, finally entered the city's outskirts, they found themselves in a new kind of hell. This wasn't the open-field warfare they had mastered. This was something else entirely. General Vasily Chukov, the commander of the Soviet 62nd Army, famously declared, "There is no land for us beyond the Volga." His soldiers took that to heart. They fought for every building, every factory, every apartment block, every room, and every stairwell. The battle descended into what the German soldiers grimly called Rattenkrieg, the Rat War. Combat was fought meter by meter in the labyrinthine ruins of industrial giants like the Red October Steel Factory and the Barricade Gun Factory. Soldiers navigated a treacherous maze of collapsed floors, underground sewers, and sniper-infested rubble. The front line was everywhere and nowhere. It could be the wall separating two rooms in an apartment building or a pile of bricks in a courtyard. Snipers, like the legendary Vasily Zaitsev, became ghosts in the ruins, picking off enemy officers and soldiers one by one, spreading terror and paranoia. Grenades were the primary tool for clearing rooms, rolled down hallways and dropped into basements. A single strategic position, like the infamous Pavlov's house, could change hands dozens of times a day, with hundreds dying for control of a single structure. The fighting was so intense and so personal that the average life expectancy of a new Soviet soldier arriving in the city was less than 24 hours. The Volga River, the city's lifeline, often ran red with the blood of the fallen and the dead. As the brutal autumn fighting bled into November, the infamous Russian winter arrived with a vengeance. Temperatures plummeted to bone-chilling lows. The German soldiers, still dressed in their summer uniforms and unprepared for the cold, began to suffer terribly. They were exhausted, low on ammunition, and running out of food. It was at this moment of weakness that the Soviet High Command, under the direction of Marshal Georgy Zhukov, unleashed its masterstroke, Operation Uranus. On November 19th, massive Soviet armies, which had been secretly amassed on the flanks of the German advance, launched a colossal pincer movement from the north and south of Stalingrad. Their objective wasn't to fight through the city, but to go around it. They smashed through the weaker Romanian and Italian forces that were protecting the German flanks. Within just 4 days, the two Soviet fronts met at the town of Kalak, snapping the trap shut. The entire German Sixth Army, over 250,000 men, was now completely encircled, cut off from all supplies and reinforcement. General Paulus sent desperate messages to Hitler, explaining the dire situation and requesting permission to attempt a breakout. Hitler's reply was swift and uncompromising. The Sixth Army will hold its positions to the last man and the last round. Surrender is forbidden. He promised that the Luftwaffe, his air force, would supply the trapped army from the air. But it was an impossible promise. The winter storms, relentless Soviet anti-aircraft fire, and the sheer scale of the need meant the air bridge was a catastrophic failure. Instead of the hundreds of tons of supplies needed daily, only a fraction got through. Inside the cauldron, known as the Kessel, conditions became apocalyptic. Soldiers starved, subsisting on horse meat, then dogs, then rats. Frostbite claimed fingers, toes, and limbs. Ammunition ran low. Medical supplies disappeared. Men froze to death in their foxholes, their bodies becoming frozen statues in the snow-covered landscape. Entire divisions simply ceased to exist, vanishing into the white wasteland, consumed by hunger, cold, and despair. A German relief attempt, Operation Winter Storm, was launched in December, but was beaten back by the determined Soviets. All hope was lost. By the end of January 1943, the once mighty German Sixth Army had disintegrated. On January 31st, a haggard and broken General Paulus, whom Hitler had just promoted to Field Marshal in a twisted attempt to ensure he would commit suicide rather than surrender, defied his Führers. He surrendered his southern forces. 2 days later, on February 2nd, the last pocket of German resistance in the north finally laid down its arms. The battle was over. Of the nearly 300,000 soldiers of the Sixth Army trapped in the cauldron, over 91,000 were taken prisoner. Starved, frozen, and sick. Only about 5,000 of them would survive the brutal march to prisoner-of-war camps and ever see Germany again. The victory was a moment of immense pride for the Soviet Union. As their red flag was raised over the skeletal remains of the city, the world finally saw proof that the Nazi war machine was not invincible. It could be stopped, and it could be broken. The defeat at Stalingrad was a psychological and strategic catastrophe for Hitler and Nazi Germany. It marked the first time an entire German field army had ever been forced to surrender. From this moment forward, the tide of the war on the Eastern Front had irrevocably turned. The initiative passed to the Red Army, which would now begin its long, bloody, 2-year-long push westward the road to Berlin. The Battle of Stalingrad cost an estimated 2 million lives, soldiers and civilians alike. It remains one of the costliest battles in human history, a testament to unimaginable suffering but also to incredible resilience and sacrifice. From the ashes of that destroyed city on the Volga, hope was reborn for the Allied cause. It was the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. This was the turning point of World War II. Thank you for watching. If you found this story powerful, please like this video and subscribe to War Tales for more incredible stories from history.